The name Joseph Stalin would come to cast a long shadow over the 20th century. Born Iosif Vissarionis Djugashvili in the small town of Gori, Georgia, in 1878, his early life was a world away from the halls of power he would one day occupy. Stalin's path to becoming the dictator of the Soviet Union was a brutal and calculated one, paved with the wreckage of his rivals and fueled by an unyielding lust for control. Following the death of Vladimir Lenin in 1924, a power vacuum opened within the Bolshevik Party. Stalin, a shrewd political operator, seized his opportunity. He outmaneuvered his opponents, most notably Leon Trotsky, through a combination of cunning strategy and ruthless tactics. By the late 1920s, Stalin had consolidated his power, eliminating any remaining threats to his authority and establishing himself as the undisputed dictator of the Soviet Union. Stalin's reign was marked by a profound transformation of Soviet society. He embarked on a program of rapid industrialization and collectivization of agriculture, determined to transform the Soviet Union into a modern industrial powerhouse. These policies, however, came at a terrible human cost. Forced collectivization led to widespread famine, particularly in Ukraine, where millions perished in the Holodomor, a man-made catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. Stalin's paranoia and lust for absolute power would soon manifest in one of the darkest chapters in human history, the Great Purge. This period of state-sanctioned terror, which gripped the Soviet Union from the mid-1930s to the late 1930s, would see millions of Soviet citizens persecuted, imprisoned and executed. It was a reign of terror that touched every corner of Soviet society, leaving an indelible scar on the nation's psyche. The year 1934 marked a turning point in Stalin's rule, one that would plunge the Soviet Union into an abyss of fear and paranoia. On December 1st, Sergei Kirov, the popular head of the Leningrad Communist Party, was assassinated in his office. The assassination sent shockwaves through the Soviet Union and provided Stalin with the pretext he needed to unleash a wave of terror that would engulf the nation. While the exact circumstances surrounding Kirov's assassination remain shrouded in mystery, most historians believe that Stalin himself orchestrated the murder. Kirov, with his charisma and popularity, represented a potential threat to Stalin's absolute authority. His assassination provided Stalin with the opportunity to eliminate a potential rival and, more importantly, to justify a campaign of mass repression. In the aftermath of Kirov's assassination, Stalin moved swiftly to consolidate his grip on power. He used the incident to launch a series of purges within the Communist Party, targeting anyone he perceived as a threat, real or imagined. Show trials, carefully orchestrated spectacles of public humiliation and confession, were staged to eliminate Stalin's opponents and instill fear in the population. Former Bolshevik leaders, once comrades in arms during the revolution, were branded as enemies of the people and accused of treason, sabotage and espionage. They were forced to confess to these fabricated charges in public trials, their coerced confessions broadcast across the nation. The accused were often tortured, threatened and promised leniency for their families in exchange for their cooperation. The show trials of the Great Purge were a grotesque parody of justice. They were carefully staged events designed to publicly humiliate Stalin's opponents and terrorize the Soviet population. The accused, often high-ranking members of the Communist Party and the military, were paraded before the cameras, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. One of the most infamous of these show trials was the Trial of the 21, held in August 1936. Among the accused were prominent Bolsheviks such as Grigory Zinoviev and Lev Kamenev, both former allies of Lenin and once powerful figures within the party. They were accused of plotting with Trotsky, now in exile, to overthrow Stalin and restore capitalism to the Soviet Union. The charges were absurd, the evidence fabricated, and the confessions clearly coerced. Yet the outcome of these trials was a foregone conclusion. The defendants, broken and demoralized, played their assigned roles, confessing to crimes they did not commit and implicating others in their alleged conspiracies. The judges, mere puppets of Stalin's will, dutifully delivered the guilty verdicts and pronounced the sentences. The Great Purge extended its reach far beyond the upper echelons of the Communist Party. It penetrated every layer of Soviet society, ensnaring millions in its web of fear and paranoia. Ordinary citizens were arrested on the flimsiest of pretexts, a careless whisper, a denunciation by a jealous neighbor, or even an association with someone accused of disloyalty. The NKVD, Stalin's secret police, operated with impunity, rounding up suspects, conducting interrogations, and sending thousands to their deaths in the gulags, the vast network of forced labor camps that stretched across the Soviet Union. As the Great Purge reached its zenith, Stalin turned his attention to the Red Army, the once vaunted symbol of Soviet military might. Marshal Mikhail Tukhachevsky, a brilliant military strategist and a hero of the Russian Civil War, became the most prominent victim of Stalin's paranoia. Tukhachevsky, a proponent of modern military doctrine, had clashed with Stalin over military strategy. Stalin, deeply suspicious of anyone who might challenge his authority, saw Tukhachevsky as a potential threat to his power. In May 1937, Tukhachevsky was arrested and accused of treason. He was accused of plotting with Nazi Germany to overthrow Stalin and install a fascist regime in the Soviet Union. The charges were preposterous, but evidence was irrelevant in Stalin's reign of terror. Tukhachevsky, along with 7 other high-ranking military officers, was subjected to a secret trial where they were tortured and forced to confess to these fabricated charges. The trial of Tukhachevsky and his co-defendants sent shockwaves through the Red Army. It marked the beginning of a systematic purge of the military, which decimated the ranks of experienced officers and crippled the Soviet Union's defenses. Thousands of officers were arrested, tortured, and executed, their deaths a testament to Stalin's paranoia and his willingness to sacrifice even the security of the nation to preserve his own power. The purge of the Red Army would have disastrous consequences for the Soviet Union in the years to come. The loss of so many experienced officers left the military unprepared for the Nazi invasion in 1941.